Welcome, this is Ike Hoffman with Tactica Real Estate Solutions, and today we're going to add the BSPRA credit to our multifamily development pro forma. BSPRA is a tool developers can use when they elect HUD 221 D4 financing that can help decrease the cash proceeds required at closing. I made a video last week about adapting the pro forma model to account for HUD, and making these changes is a prerequisite to this video, as Tactica's development model in its baseline state only will account for construction to permanent financing. The HUD video tutorial is linked below. Please check that out first and then come back once you've completed it. This video is going to jump right into the BSPRA Excel tutorial. If you want to know more about the BSPRA initiative, I suggest you check out our blog post that covers the program, its benefits, drawbacks, and various other details about eligibility. That link is also in the description. Just a quick disclaimer, my edits to the model are subjective. The HUD program is subject to change, and the alterations I'm about to make may not be accurate for your particular deal. Always confirm the accuracy of underwriting with a lender knowledgeable with the HUD 221 D4 program. If you're watching this video and you think there's a better way to go about something, to account for something, please let me know in the comments section below. If you've been enjoying Tactica's video content, I'd really appreciate it if you'd like the video, subscribe to our channel, and allow us to notify you when releasing new video content. Let's add BSPRA. We're looking at Tactica's multifamily development model that has recently been altered to account for HUD 221 D4 financing. The final step is to add the BSPRA credit, which will require just a few small alterations to the model. Let's start on the Budget and Draw tab. Down in row 37, I have an expense ready to go dedicated to BSPRA. HUD allows for a BSPRA credit of up to 10% of hard and soft costs. I'm going to enter a formula in here. I'm going to say equals 10% times, and then we'll take the capitalized interest, some of these other financing, impact fees, FF&E. I'm going to skip the contingencies. The contingencies in rows 31 through 33, that's cash you would need to bring to the closing table. That ultimately it's reimbursable, but it's not financeable. And then we'll take plus sum of everything else except for the land. BSPRA does not allow for a 10% chunk of the land cost. I'll close the parentheses and we have a BSPRA expense of approximately $2.66 million. There's one other small change I need to make on this tab. It's not an alteration per se, but a change to the operating capital. If you recall from the last video, we talked about how HUD requires 4 to 6 months of operating capital if the loan amount is below $25 million. Well, once we added BSPRA, the potential loan amount increased to just a hair over $27 million. HUD's guidance for a loan of that size would be 9 months of principal and interest payments. So I'm going to swap out the 6 with a 9. Now the operating capital increases to $1.4 million. We're going to come to the project summary tab, and right under equity required, we'll add the BSPRA proceeds. I'm just going to take an equal sign and we'll grab it right from the budget and draw tab. And then we need to adjust the equity required formula. Remember, BSPRA is a use, but it's also a source. So when it comes to the cash you need to bring to the closing table, BSPRA helps reduce that amount. So we need to take the equity required, click into the formula here after C21, click minus, and then we'll subtract out the $2.66 million. So the updated equity required amount is about $4.23 million. One other thing I want to mention on this tab is if we scroll over to the developer fee, it's currently 0%. If you're a for-profit developer building a market rate deal, you cannot have a developer fee and use BSPRA. So you need to make sure that developer fee in this model is 0% to be as accurate as possible. Another small adjustment we need to make is on the budget and draw tab. BSPRA, I have it classified as a finance and title item. It's going to be an upfront cost, but because it is not only a cost, but also a credit on the sources side of the sources and uses schedule, we need to adjust this equity formula to account for that. So if we get an 85% LTC loan, it'd be the 15%, and then also those cash contingencies. But to accurately depict BSPRA, we would also add that back into the equity formula equals plus BSPRA. So now the equity accounts for the 15% you'd be required to bring to the closing table. If you have an 85% LTC loan, the cash reserves for working capital, operating deficits, and now the BSPRA credit as well to offset the BSPRA expense. If we didn't make this adjustment, we'd be overstating construction costs because we'd only be putting about $4 million of equity into the deal. We'd tap into construction loan proceeds faster, and the capitalized interest expense would be a lot higher. Now what we need to do is, you can see I have a summary down here of what's financeable. We talked about this very in depth in the HUD 221D4 conversion video, but basically all I'm doing is I'm taking all of these costs, I'm subtracting out the contingencies, the cash contingencies that are reimbursable, aren't financeable. So $31.8 million is financeable. If we get an 85% loan, the potential loan proceeds would be a hair above $27 million. In the true LTC, once we count the cash contingencies you need, is 78.85%. So I'm going to take that amount, I'm going to go to the project summary tab, and I'm going to paste it as a value. Control-Alt-V, values. Okay. And you can see when we come back, it adjusts a little bit. Development's very circular in nature, so I'm going to do that one more time. The difference isn't material by any means at this point, but if we do it one more time, it ties out a lot better, and I'll show you where I see that in a second here. So the last thing I like to do is just proof the work I've done thus far. It can be complicated in a model like this where there's a lot of moving parts to fully wrap your head around what these alterations are doing and if they're truly adding out accurately. So I like to just create a super high level sources and uses summary off to the right and just make sure that the data that we've updated so far in the model tie out with just a more high-level look at the benefit BSPRA should be providing you. So if we scroll out, I'm going to adjust some of these columns just to make it more manageable on the screen. We'll start with our uses. We have land, hard and soft costs, contingency, and BSPRA. So land, it's going to equal right from the budget and draw tab, $2.5 million. Hard and soft, I'm going to come back to the budget and draw tab. I'm going to take soft costs, hard costs, FF&E, impact fees, finance and title. I want to exclude BSPRA, so the 2.66 million here. BSPRA has its own line, 2 rows below. Come back to cash contingency. I'm going to do a manual calculation for that. BSPRA, I can grab it right from the budget and draw. 2.664 million. And then for our sources, we have debt, cash equity, cash contingency, and BSPRA. I'll start at the bottom. BSPRA, we're just going to grab it from across a few columns here. Cash contingency, I'll also grab it from the uses side. For debt, we're getting 85% times BSPRA plus hard and soft costs plus the land, which equals 27 million. Now that we have the debt in there, remember our contingencies, it's going to be 4% of the debt plus 9 months times the fully amortizing monthly loan payment. That's the cash contingency is about 2.5 million. I'm going to calculate a total down here. So our total construction cost is 34.267 million. If we scroll over to the financial model, it ties out. The total cost is 34.267 million. And then the cash equity, if we do a sum formula here, it's just going to be the total uses minus debt minus cash contingency minus BSPRA, which is 2.1 million. Our uses and sources tie out. To go a little further, if we highlight the cash equity required, so that's cash equity is the 15%. If you're getting an 85% LTC loan, and then the cash contingency, that's funding the operating reserve and some of the working capital items. It ties out to 4.569 million. The equity required in the model, 4.569 million. Then if we highlight all 3 items, so the cash items plus BSPRA, we get 7.233 million in sources. If we come to the budget and draw tab and look at the equity amount here, 7.233 million. So everything ties out at this point, I'm confident in the model and that we've correctly accounted for the BSPRA expense and BSPRA credit in our underwriting. So what impact does this have? If we come to the returns summary, you're getting into this development with more leverage, less equity. So this cash on cash return that we added in the last video in row 46, using BSPRA can give you a lot of extra yield if you're putting less money into the deal. The flip side of that is the debt service. Debt service is significantly higher with BSPRA. If we come back to the project summary tab quick, I just want to touch on that real quickly. I'm going to expand these columns again. The DSCR, once the property stabilized, is 1.27. Before we added the BSPRA expense, that was as high as 1.45%. So you can see BSPRA's putting a significant amount of stress on that DSCR. The fully amortizing payment is now $153,000. Before we added BSPRA, it was just shy of $140,000. That's about $13,000 more of monthly debt service. In summary, adding BSPRA is relatively straightforward once we alter the model to handle HUD financing. BSPRA is helpful because it can help negate not having a developer fee if you're a for-profit developer building a market rate project. But on the flip side, it makes the project riskier because it increases loan proceeds, decreases cash requirements, and ultimately makes the debt service more burdensome and can put stress on the DSCR. As a reminder, I have 2 blog posts linked below that talk about HUD 221 D4 financing and the BSPRA credit well beyond just the financial modeling implications of them. One final disclaimer, the edits I made to the model are subjective. The HUD program is subject to change and the alterations I made may not be accurate with your particular project. Always confirm the accuracy of your underwriting with a lender knowledgeable with the HUD 221 D4 financing program. If you've been enjoying Tactica's real estate analysis content, I'd really appreciate it if you'd like the video, subscribe to our channel, and allow us to notify you when we're releasing new video content. Really appreciate you watching this video, and we'll see you next time.